Hi, my name is Anthony Rodriguez, and I'm one of the Urban Horticultural Program Specialists at the UF IFAS Extension in Homestead, Florida. Today, I'll be teaching you about bees in your backyard, South Florida edition. A little more about the UF IFAS Extension. We are the University of Florida Institute of Food and Agriculture Sciences. We are an extension of the University of Florida. We are located in Miami-Dade County. There is one located in every county. Ours is located in Homestead, Florida. We assist growers, homeowners. We assist with youth and family development programs. We offer workshops. You can contact us by email, phone, or you can come by our office and check us out. We have certifications, hands-on training, educational materials. You can find us at any fair or festival here in Miami-Dade County. You can find us on social media. We have a newsletter, and also you can come by and bring us samples. We'll try our best to diagnose whatever problem or plant or specimen that you have. We will try our best to get it done for free. If we are unable to, there is the Tropical and Research Education Center, which is down the street, which then it would cost you about $40 per sample. But again, we'll try our best to try to get you the right answer before you spend some money. This slide here is just to show that we do not discriminate. All right, going right into the presentation. Bees of Florida. All right, so I'm going to be covering 6 or 7 bees here located in South Florida. As you can see, there's many different types, styles, shapes, sizes, right? And also, this publication can be found on our EDIS website. It's EDIS, and it's the University of Florida search engine. It's basically like Google, but for agriculture and through UF. As you can see, you have sweat bees, we have leafcutter bees, mason bees, bumblebees, carpenter bees, longhorn bees, mining bees, plaster bees, and cuckoo bees. Right? As you can see, they come in all different colors. Their wings are different size. What's cool about this is it shows most of the bees here in South Florida, right, are in Florida, and there's almost 320 species of native bees in Florida. People forget about the native bees because they're not, in the cartoons, they're not in the news. So the unfortunate thing is that the native bees are dwindling faster than the honeybee. The bee is the most important organism on this planet right now. They are endangered, and I mean, luckily we have close to 4 to 5 thousand different species of native bees in America, but Florida houses 320 roughly. What's interesting about the native bee is they actually pollinate more accurately than the honeybee, but because the honeybee has uh, more numbers per colony or per hive, they're used for pollination for large crops and groves and almonds, things of that nature. And so, some fun facts, right? Because we want to make this fun, right? We want people to want to like bees. We want them to love bees. They're very important to us. We need them. They need us. Well, we don't. They don't really need us, but we need them definitely. And so, again, Florida is home to more than 315 species, and 29 are found here, nowhere else in the world. Like I said, they come in all different shapes, size, and colors, and fuzziness, right? So they have this little bit of fur on their back and their sides, a little bit on their legs, right? So some have more hair than others. Um, each bee sometimes has a specific plant that they pollinate, so they're very important. Um, but overall, we do need these specimens to pollinate for us, right? What's cool about native bees are that they're not very aggressive and rarely sting, and this is because a native bee is usually solitary, right, or independent, meaning one colony or group consists of 1 to 2 bees, right? So a male and a female, right? And so what happens is if a native bee stings you, that stinger will detach and the bee will die, and so there's no more colony, right? So the bee is going to try its best to not sting you, right? So that's why they rarely sting you, right? And again, they are important pollinators for many crops and plants. And again, they are solitary and do not live in large colonies like honeybees. Honeybees live in 60 to 80,000 uh, bees per colony. And we'll keep it going. Right, so the USDA estimates that 80% of insect crop pollination is accomplished by bees. I'll go further into it on a couple further into the presentation, and I'll show you a visual representation of how important bees are and that 80%. They can be found in yards, natural areas, roadside strips, empty lots, and beaches. Bees are basically like us. They don't like to fly through thick bushes. They want to fly on the sidewalk. They want to fly down fence lines. They want to fly where it's open, so that way they can get to their next destination quicker, right? So they can be found basically everywhere where we like to go. Florida's native bees can be found anywhere in North America where flowers bloom, right? So all the way from even from South America to Canada, right? So all of the Americas. Um, these bees specific can only be found in Florida or in North America, right? Without bees, right? If we didn't have them, there'd be no almonds, apples, blueberries, cherries, avocados, cucumbers, onions, grapefruit, oranges, and pumpkins would not be here. Thank God for the bees, the native bees, and the honeybees to be able to pollinate and allow us to be able to have these fruits and vegetables. And then some common native bees are found in South Florida, which I'll cover, which include the southeastern blueberry bee, sweat bee, and the American bumblebee. All right, so now we're going to cover bees' eyesight, right? Very important. This is how they get from flower to flower, right? So bees have 5 eyes. They have 2 eyes in the front, which are known as compound eyes, and three eyes on top, which are known as ocelli eyes, right? Each compound eye is made up of 7,000 tiny lenses called facets, right? And so there's 2 compound eyes, which means that it adds up to almost 14,000 tiny lenses from just those 2 eyes, the compound eyes, right? And then ocelli comes from the Latin word ocilius, which means little eye. These little eyes have single lenses and help the bee maintain stability and navigate, right? So this is what helps them go up and down, left and right. They can see very close and very far, right? So basically they have 20/20 vision, if not better. Bees' compound eyes are most attuned to seeing green, blue, and ultraviolet. They can detect up to 1/300th of a second of motion, right? So very fast, something that moves very, very quick, or a very slight movement, the bees can pick up on it, right? And bees can see some colors that we can't see, but they also can't see red, right? So the color red is something that they can't see. A beekeeper, if they want to sell some hives or they want to work on their hives in the middle of the night, or once it gets dark, they'll actually go into those hives with a red light instead of a yellow light, because then the bees are not attracted to it. As you can see in the picture next to it, the bee vision versus human vision, right? So you can see us humans, we can see the entire spectrum, right? So from infrared to ultraviolet. Now bees can only see between yellow and orange, right? Basically orange, but they can see into the flower. And as you can see here on the display on the left, how they can see the nectar and the pollen almost sparkle or jump out at them when flying through the air. As you can see here, how the colors are different, right? At more center of the flower is where the nectar is located and the pollen, and you can see that there's different colors. right? They see polarized light and detect ultraviolet markers in flowers. They can distinguish between dark and light, making them very good at seeing edges, right? Bee vision is important for finding flowers at a distance. And cool fun fact is if bees were superheroes, right, their eyesight would be their superpower, right? Because it's what gets them through the day. It's what gets them going from flower to flower, and they're able to see that nectar within the flower, right? And of course, bees can also smell, so they use their senses to pick up on odors, and this allows them to hone in on flowers when they are already close. Another thing that bees do, it's called the waggle dance. This is the honeybee, right? The honeybee does the waggle dance, and what this does is this tells the other bees in the hive that they found an abundance of pollen and that they should follow them.
Honeybees have some fascinating abilities, among them being able to communicate by performing a unique dance. It informs hive mates where a newly discovered food source is located. Every cycle of this waggle dance roughly describes the shape of the figure eight. Let's rewind and look in more detail. The bee only waggles on a part of its route, a straight run, indicated here by the waved line. The secret lies in the direction of the straight run, or to be more precise, in the angle between the straight run and the perpendicular, which in this case is 90 degrees to the left. This tells the other bees that food is available 90 degrees to the left of the sun. If the angle is 60 degrees to the right, they'll be flying 60 degrees to the right of the sun.
All right, some waggle dance, huh? So the waggle dance is very important. As you can see, the bee shakes its abdomen right in the direction of where the pollen is. They know where the sun is, and so it's very important because then those bees can go and not waste time and just go straight to where that abundance of pollen is and nectar. So tying this all into the Florida-friendly landscaping 9 principles, you'll see in the next slides how each principle can be used when trying to attract native bees to your landscape, right? So we're going to cover a couple of different species of bees that are here in South Florida, and how to attract them. As you can see, some of the principles that we'll cover will be right plant, right place, attracting wildlife, managing yard pests responsibly, recycling yard waste, and things of that nature. Native bees in your Florida-friendly landscape. Again, approximately 315 species of native bees here in Florida. Having native bees in your landscape shows a diverse and healthy landscape, meaning there's not chemicals, right? You have tons of flowers, things are blooming, there's plenty of nectar and pollen for them to feed on. Bees rely on flowers for survival. Their diet consists of pollen and nectar. They actually make a substance called bee bread, right? So they use pollen, nectar, honey, and water, and they mix all those together, and they let that ferment or mix, and that is what they eat. Unfortunately, there is an overall decline in bee populations. It isn't so substantial on the yearly basis, but we did lose roughly 1 to 2% of our overall bee population worldwide. Unfortunately, we lost 50% of our commercial hives last year. And so these presentations are made so that way we can bring the importance of bees and honeybees to the public and to try to inform everyone of how important they are. And these presentations heighten with awareness and aid in conservation efforts. And planting flowers for bees in your yard or community gardens is a good idea. And I'll cover that in the next couple slides. All right, and a slide or two after I cover these bees that we have here in South Florida. And also going right into the principles, right? As you can see, principle number 5, attracting wildlife, right? Planting those flowering plants, but also having maybe a bird bath or a fountain so that way these pollinators can drink. As you can see here, we have a hummingbird and we have honeybees, in symbiosis right here, just trying to have a drink of water, so that way they can continue their day. All right, so getting right into the superstars here in South Florida. The first one is the southeastern blueberry bee, right? They are located in South Florida, but they can be found all the way to Texas and to Pennsylvania. They're not found anywhere else in the world. They do resemble a small bumblebee. They are strong flyers and do very well in cold weather. They're active between March through May. And a fun fact about them is that a single adult female can visit up to 50,000 blueberry flowers, resulting in more than 6,000 ripe blueberries. Right? These are crucial and essential to the blueberry market, blueberry production here in America. And what's so cool about these bees is they don't pollinate like the other bees or like honeybees, right? So the southeastern blueberry bee actually uses a method called sonication, where they'll actually go up to the flower, they'll grab hold of it, and then they'll shake their wing muscles, and they will create a buzz or like a C note frequency, and this frequency pushes out the nectar and pollen. And as you can see, they're very furry, very hairy, and so that pollen just sticks to that fur. All right. Second superstar we have here is the carpenter bees. They kind of get a bad rap because carpenter bees are like carpenters. They will create cavities within your wood framing, your windowsills, your swings, anything, a barn, any wood structure. They will make their home in it. You know, Fortunately, but unfortunately, you could have your very own carpenter bees living next to your house now. Check out any wood framing that you have around your yard or your house, and you may already be housing some carpenter bees. Right? Carpenter bees are categorized by their size. Small carpenter bees are less than 8 millimeters long, and larger carpenter bees are 20 millimeters or larger. That's an easy way to tell them apart. They're active between March and October, right? So most of the year. And the fun fact is they get their name woodworker from the Greek word xylocopa, right, which refers to bee's ability to make its home in wood. The carpenter bee, as you can see, can be very small or very big for its species, and they come in all different shapes, size, and colors. Number 3, we got sweat bees, right? Yes, they get their name sweat because they drink sweat, right? So what they'll do is, let's say you're out in your garden and you're, been working all day, you've been sweating, right? And then you get that fly or bug that you feel like just keeps landing on you and landing on you. Most likely, it is a sweat bee, and what they're trying to do is get a drink of sweat off your skin. You can identify them by being metallic green, brown, black, blue, or purple. Florida is home to over 60 species, but there are over 3,500 known species around the world. So they nest in the ground, right? So they burrow, again, a solitary bee, right? So one thing you can do in your garden is, instead of mulching everything around the base of your garden bed, you can actually leave 2 to 3 feet without mulch, so that way these bees have a place to make a home. They're the most diverse in nesting behaviors of any bee group, including solitary, communal, semi-social, and primitively eusocial nesters. They're active year-round, right? Because there's so many of them. And the cool thing about them, the fun fact is they shape their pollen masses for developing young into cubes. Most bees, or at least the honeybee, they create a round ball and they pack the pollen away. The sweat bee actually creates a cube, and that's how they pack their pollen away. We have here the American bumblebee, right? If any of you have seen the movie Transformers, or 8 of them that have come out, they actually made Bumblebee, the Transformer, after the American bumblebee, right? So the American bumblebee genus species name is the Bombus impatiens, right? Also known as buzzing sound. There's over 250 species worldwide, but only 5 in Florida. They'll never be found in the Keys. They're robust and hairy, and females have hairy pollen baskets on their hind legs. This is to be able to capture much more pollen, right? They are larger than most bees, and they nest in colonies of 25 to 400. Like I said, most native bees are independent or solitary compared to the honeybee, right, that has up to 60 to 80,000 bees in a thriving colony. The bumblebee is somewhere in the middle. They can have colonies up to 400. Again, asking for bumblebee colonies to come pollinate your plants, it's going to be a lot more difficult, or maybe a lot more expensive compared to asking to use honeybees, right? They're active in a span of a year. There may be several generations of workers and males serving a single queen, right? And the fun fact is they buzz pollinate also, like the southeastern blueberry bee, right? The buzz pollination it also creates an audible buzz at the frequency of middle C note, right? So this is a sound that it makes. Again, they do sonication as well. They buzz pollinate, so they grab onto the flower and they shake. All right, moving right along. Polyester bees, right? So polyester, right? A lot of clothing's made out of polyester. Well, polyester bees get their name from either being known as plaster bees, or because of the substance that they make is like a cellophane, like a plastic or silk-like substance, right? And using their tongues, females coat this substance on the walls of their nests, right? So what they do is they'll layer their nests with this substance, and what it does is it gets them out of the elements. It helps waterproof it, and protects against potential contaminants such as fungi, bacteria, and so they're active from February through October. And their genus name again comes from Greek colettes, right? And so this means one who glues. Again, cellophane, right? Silky-like, sticky substance that they use to layer their home with. Our next important superstar bee that we have here in South Florida is the leafcutter bee, right? It's pretty self-explanatory. They cut leaves, right? They have big jaws, right, to help them cut those leaves, right? And the way you can identify them is from stripes, spots, iridescent colors, are just a few features that we can identify them by. They are solitary nesters, right? They use almost any material to help build their nests. As you can see, all the different ways that they nest in the photos. One there on the bottom, they made a complete leaf like home cavity. As you can see on the top right, they actually made a home within the tree branch, right? And as you can see on the left, where they get their name from, the bee is cutting the leaf there. They're active from March through October, right? And they get the name Megachilidae, which means big lip family, in Greek, and in reference to their large mandibles, right? So they need those big jaws to cut those leaves. Last but not least, the European honeybee, right? They can be found in our backyards here in South Florida. The honeybee is not native. They come from Europe and Asia and Africa, right? And so they were brought over in the 1600s through the Mayflower, right? When the Pilgrims came to America, all right. First they started in Plymouth Rock, and then within a few years, the entire country was filled with honeybees. All right, so there's almost 12 different species of honeybees worldwide. The genus name Apis is Latin for bee, and mellifera is the Latin for honey bearing or honey carrying, and which refers to the production of honey that the bees make, right? And like I said, they're much different than the native bee. The native bee is solitary, may have one, two, or maybe the bumblebee up to 400 bees per colony. But with the honeybee, you can have up to 80,000 bees in one colony. That is a healthy, thriving, productive bee colony, right? That colony can produce up to 100 pounds per year. So if you have 10 hives, that's 1,000 pounds of honey. All right, so they're active from February through October. They fly up to 15 miles an hour, and it takes up to 2 million flower visits to make 1 pound of honey. Right, so one big jar that you find at the store, that took up to 2 million flower visits to make that 1 pound of honey. And another fun fact, 1 ounce of honey would fuel a bee's flight around the world. Right, so these are very productive bees. Like I said, they can produce up to 100 pounds per colony. Right, a bee can make a flight and visit up to 120 to 150 flowers per flight, right? So that's why it's good to have these abundance of plants and have a water source, so that way they can keep going throughout the day. And of course, honeybee, right? I had to have a picture of honey here. This is that golden goo substance that we all love. Very sweet, very nutritional. And it's actually a byproduct of what the bees make. So the bees, right, they make their own bee bread, their own substance that they use to eat. Honey is actually what they use to store. It's what gets them through the winter time, right? So a commercial beekeeper up north where they have really harsh winters, a beekeeper will go into his hives and he can take up to 50% of the honey frames or honey storage that the bees have made. But here in and then luckily here in South Florida, it's hot year round, so there aren't harsh winters. So you can take a little more. You can take up to 70% of the honey here in South Florida. So now that we covered, the main point of the presentation, the 6 native bees plus the honeybee that you can find in your backyard. This will now cover some of the principles and teach you about how to maintain or manage a garden for native bees. So you want to pick out an area in your yard where you can install plants of varying heights and widths, right? You want to use a vertical style of planting, so either big plants in the middle and then working its way from medium plants to smaller plants to the outside, or if you can see in the example in the mid right of the picture on the right where it says profile view of garden, you can put a big plant on one side and then do smaller plants after that, or you can do a big plant with a small plant and then plants get bigger after that. But you mainly want to use that vertical style of planting. Why? Because the bees are not going to fly through the garden. They're going to fly on the garden, above the garden. Right? You want to have dense floral displays, right? So big bushy plants that have tons of flowers with that nectar source, right? You want to plant multiple individual species. Why? Because then you can have plants blooming all year round. You want to at least plant, if you can, 5, 10, 15 different species of flowering plants, so that way at least throughout the year you have 3 or more plants blooming. You want to avoid pesticides. pesticides will kill bees. I'll go over that in a couple slides. If you do need to put down pesticides, please apply them in the evening hours, right? Of course, the label is the law. The label has the instructions. Please follow the label. And then you also need to be cautious when buying seeds or transplants. Unfortunately, these big seed-based commercialized growers, right? They have what they've done is they've taken the seed, the natural seed, and they've encapsulated it with the fertilizer and the pesticide. And what happens is that seed will grow, right? What that does is it heightens the propagation rate. And so that seed will grow, but then that pesticide and fertilizer will get into the plant systemically, right? Through the roots, through inside the plant. And so when the bee comes to pollinate, that pesticide is in the nectar, and now that bee consumes it, either gets sick or is able to make it back to the hive, and then that nectar makes its way into the honey, which then we eat, right? So you need to be cautious. You need to be cautious when purchasing seeds or transplants. And as you can see at the bottom, like I said, the different principles, right? So managing yard pests responsibly, don't go spraying chemicals or overusing chemicals, and also water efficiently, right? So when installing a new garden or a new landscape, you do want to use irrigation. If you can, you want to use low to moderate water needs, such as micro irrigation, right? So this is just going to make sure that the roots get wet. You can use drip, you can use micro, and the whole point is to be more efficient with energy, with water, with chemical use, all of that, because the more we do, the better we will be. And here is an example of a beautiful, attractive landscape that bees would be attracted to, right? As you can see, all the different color schemes and floral arrangements, dense floral arrangements. You can see the whites and the indigos and the purples, right? Now you're probably wondering, well, what are those red flowers there? If bees can't see red, who pollinated that? Well, then you have your hummingbirds, you have butterflies, or you may have the accidental wasp or ants or beetle that just so happened to move from one flower to the other and accidentally pollinated. You can see, like I said, the thickness, also the way they did the vertical style. You have bigger plants on the one side and you have smaller plants on the other. And this is in Oregon, but I just felt like this is such a great photo of what an attractive landscape would be to attract bees. And of course, like I touched on before, you want to be cautious when putting down pesticides or buying seeds or transplants. This is just one of the very few examples of different natural ways to attack the pests without killing bees. The main thing you want to do is you want to look for the label where it says "Bee Safe," right? So you want to use something that won't kill bees, but will attack the pests that you're trying to target, right? So these are just, like I said, very minuscule example of the different ways you can get rid of those pests without killing bees. All right, so another way to attract bees and to keep those backyard bees happy and healthy and safe, you could actually use, you can make a pollinator hotel. You could reuse recycle waste, which is one of our principles. As you can see here, they took pieces of wood and they drilled holes in it. They used bamboo shoots. They used toilet paper rolls. Just leftover wood you can use and make into a pollinator hotel. The only specifics that you need to know is that a native bee will burrow in a cavity that's 6 to 8 inches in depth, right? And so as long as it's 6 to 8 inches in depth and it has the bee space of 3/8 inch of the entrance, this will be optimal to house native bees, right? And then with honeybees also they've come up with the exact measurements of 3/8 inch of what bees like as far as a orifice or a hole that they will go into to enter their cavity of where they live. You can buy these at these big box stores, online, Google, but I would just say try to recycle the clipping, the wood that you've cut down, the trees that you've cut. You could use the wood in a pollinator hotel. All right, just to give you a visual example of how important bees are, right? Remember I said that 80% of what we eat is pollinated by bees. As you can see here, we have a hamburger bun, right? What's missing? The meat, the veggies, the sauce, you name it, whatever needs to be in between this burger bun, bees have something to do with it, right? So your fruits, your vegetables, right? Tomatoes, onions, pickles, all that is pollinated by bees. And then you're probably wondering, well, what about the meat? Well, the meat, right? The livestock, so beef, chicken, pork, all of those animals eat our leftovers or eat the bottom grade of the vegetables that we don't buy or the fruits that we don't buy. And what they do is they they basically compost all that together and they make a feed, right? They put the grains, they dry it out, and then they feed the livestock with that. So again, if we didn't have bees, we'd only be left with just a bun. And to cover a little bit about what I'm doing as well, I am getting my Master Craftsman Beekeeping certification with the University of Florida. I'm currently on my advanced level. I am a certified beekeeper through the University of Florida. This is the website that you can go to check that out. There are 4 levels. There's Apprentice, Advanced, Master Beekeeper, and Master Craftsman Beekeeper. Each level does cost some money, but definitely look into it. Anyone can become a beekeeper. I know beekeepers as young as 5 years old, so it's never too early to start, and it's never too late to start. So please check it out. It's the University of Florida Master Beekeeping Program. Also, UF offers a free podcast on Spotify and also on their website. It's called Two Bees in a Podcast. The two main hosts or commentators, Dr. Jamie Ellis and Amy Vu, they have a podcast, I think at least once a month. There's more than 160 episodes so far. Each episode is about 35 minutes to an hour, right? So it's definitely something nice to listen to. That's where I get some or a lot of my information from. Just listening to that, having it in the background while I'm working on other paperwork or other presentations. There's so much information. There's enthusiasts, there's activists, there's doctors, there's lawyers. There's all sorts of professional people on there that give their testimony of how they got started in beekeeping, where they're at now, and the new research that they've found or they're coming up with. To leave you guys with one last statement, right? One last hurrah. To advance our understanding of managed honeybees and wild bees in Florida, the U.S., and globally with the goal of improving the health and productivity of bee pollinators everywhere. As you can see in this cartoon on the right, how important bees are to us. Right, my boss wanted me to put this in here. We thought it was cute, but it's right to the point. Right, the bee is saying, if we die, we're taking you with us. And if you remember that hamburger bun, right, if we didn't have bees, we wouldn't be able to have a burger. All we'd be left with is just the bun. They pollinate up to 80% of what we eat, and all we'd be left with is wheat, rocks, and water. And I want to thank you all for taking your time out of your day to listen to my presentation. Of course, you can contact me anytime. This is my information here. Like I said at the beginning of the presentation, you can stay connected with us. We have tons of social media outlets, right? We have the Twitter, which is now X. We have also a YouTube channel, which this is going to be uploaded to. We have Instagram. We have Facebook, right? Contact us if you want that newsletter. Give me a call, send me an email. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.